Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, May 28th. In our devotion for today, I want to continue with the story of Nehemiah. If you remember, we've been learning about Nehemiah's situation. He is living in Persia, serving the king, living a privileged life, and he hears news about what's going on back in Israel. The city of Jerusalem is in a state of disrepair. People are being taken advantage of. The wall's been destroyed. There's no protections for people. The temple cannot proceed in its rebuilding plan because of all of the things that are going on around. Nehemiah is cut to the heart, and so he decides he wants to be part of fixing this horrible situation, but he doesn't know how at first, and the problem is too big for him. So first he prays to God, and then he goes before the king in a very, in a way that was very kind of scary because he was taking a great risk, and he asks the king. He uses the relationship credibility that he built up serving well in the king of Persia's court in order to get permission and help and financial support to go back and to do this tremendous task. Today we're going to pick up the story in the bottom half of chapter 2 and see what happens when Nehemiah finally has journeyed and enters or arrives in Jerusalem. And we're going to pick up the story there. So I arrived in Jerusalem 3 days later. I slipped out during the night, taking only a few others with me. I had not told anyone about the plans God had put in my heart for Jerusalem. We took no pack animals with us except the donkey I was riding. After dark, I went out through the valley gate, past the jackal's well, and over to the dung gate to inspect the broken walls and burned gates. Then I went to the fountain gate and to the king's pool, but my donkey couldn't even get through the rubble. So, though it was still dark, I went up the Kidron Valley instead, inspecting the wall before I turned back and entered again at the valley gate. The city officials did not know I had been out there or what I was doing, for I had not yet said anything to anyone about my plans. I had not yet spoken to the Jewish leaders, the priests, the nobles, the officials, or anyone else in the administration. But now I said to them, "You know very well what trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire. Let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem and end this disgrace." Then I told them about how the gracious hand of God had been upon me and about my conversation with the king of Persia. They replied at once, "Yes, let's rebuild the wall." So they began the good work. But when Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem the Arab heard of our plan, they scoffed contemptuously. "What are you doing? Are you rebelling against the king of Persia?" they asked. I replied, "The God of heaven will help us succeed. We, his servants, will start rebuilding this wall, but you have no share, legal right, or historic claim in Jerusalem." The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You know, this situation when Nehemiah arrives in Jerusalem is that everything is in a state of repair. You can't even get through parts of the city because it's in rubble. And there's no organization, no effort to repair these walls. And because the city, the walls, and the gates are destroyed, the people are being victimized by bandits, by gangs that are running rampant. There is no real rule or authority. Whoever has the biggest sword gets to take whatever they want. That's the kind of situation that's going on in Jerusalem. And Nehemiah sees that people are being victimized, so he wants to do something about it. And so his plan goes like this. First, after he prayed, then after he talked to the king, he arrives in Jerusalem with supplies, with help. And the first thing he does is he goes around the city trying to figure out the extent of the real problems. Once he has seen what and identified what the real problems are, he then gathers the leaders together, and he knows he can't build this on his own. He needs everybody to be working together. So he gathers the people together, and he envisions, he shares this vision from God, this plan that he has. He gets them on board and gets them excited, and he does it by helping them realize that this is God's plan. This is what God desires. It's not just what they desire, what they need. God's moving forward, and God's going to accomplish this, and he tries to get people to get on board with what God already desires to be done. That in itself is encouraging and strengthening because there's lots of opposition, as we're going to see, but the people are going to be able to rally around Nehemiah because he's given them a vision. He's giving them a plan. He's going to help them work through step by step what they can do to alleviate the suffering of the people. Today, we are living in a place where there's a lot of suffering going on, there's a lot of heartache, there's a lot of fear. And if we want to be part of God's solution to what's going on around here, we can imitate what Nehemiah is doing. First, we can continue to pray, to seek guidance from God, because we know only with God's help can we go forward and be part of helping to alleviate the suffering of people. Secondly, we can go around and we can look at identify what are the real problems, because oftentimes we get distracted by what's not the real cause, what's not the real problem. Sometimes we see enemies where there aren't, and sometimes we see people who are willing to help out, but they're really not. The real enemy in our case is probably fear. It's the biggest obstacle that we all have. We are so afraid of losing what we've already lost once again that we tend to hoard, to hold on to grab hold of. We tend to think that we need to go back to the old way of living when that's not possible anymore, instead of being willing to be courageous and embrace a new way of living. I'm one that's going to come before you and say the problems of the world are far greater than me. They're far greater than you. But Nehemiah is showing us that if we break down the plans, and if we are willing to work on things, one, identify what the real problems are and work on those little things one by one, we can do something incredible. Nehemiah is going to look at the situation and see people are being taken advantage of. He can't necessarily stop the bandits and the gangs. They're too powerful for him. What we can do is rally the people to rebuild the wall so there's more protection for them. We can do the same thing. We can't stop COVID-19. It's too big for you and me. I'm sure smarter people than us is working on a cure, but we can do little steps to help protect people from being taken advantage of. We can pray for people. We can be the person that drives people. We can be the person that looks in on people. We can be the person that sacrifices the things that we don't necessarily need, even though we hoard them and want them, so that others can have them. We can make smart decisions, not based on fear or legacy or political persuasion, but we can stand up for those who are in need, for that which is right, for the benefit of all. There are so many ways that if we want to be creative, if we want to see and take time to figure out what are the real problems, what are the real obstacles here, and we can take part in helping alleviate those. For example, one of the real problems that we see in Rockford right now is the fact that our youth have nothing to do during the summer. Lots of the programs have been canceled, and it is a struggle for our city and for our youth leaders and for our program coordinators across the board, from churches to the YMCA to public schools, to figure out, to the Rockford Park District, to figure out what are things we can do. One thing I know is that we're not going to solve this problem just by complaining. We're only going to be able to solve this problem is if we have a lot more people willing to volunteer time and efforts and resources to figure out what can happen. I know that any kind of programming activities that have to happen this summer need one adult per 9 kids. That's where we're at. There are not one adult per 9 kids willing to volunteer to help out in any kind of youth program across the board in any kind of organization. So maybe that's what we have to do. Maybe we need to open our homes. Maybe we need to be more patient with other people. I don't know. The problem is much bigger than I. We need to rally together. We need to know that God cares for our youth, and we need to think creatively, but we need to be willing to sacrifice of ourselves and our time to volunteer, to do something. It's one small thing. I wish I could give you an easy solution, but there isn't one. But I know that, like with Nehemiah, the solution forward is if we stop looking out for our own self-interests, instead look to the needs of others. We're willing to work with others, even people very different than us who have different agendas, but we're willing to work together in order to find little solutions that added up provide a very big help to those who are in need. Amen. Amen. It is Thursday. That means Saturday we have our final kind of donation drive pickup of the month of May. We are collecting items for Carpenter's Place, Mosaic, and for a local food bank. Check out our Facebook page or our website for information on what you can donate. The donation drive happens from 9 to 11 a.m. on Saturday morning. All you got to do is drive up to the southwest side of the building to the school entrance. Someone will come and pick up the items out of your car. Thank you so much. Please remember this Friday, we still have worship. This Sunday, we still have worship, Sunday live, 9 a.m. on Facebook. In the meantime, take care and look in on those who are most vulnerable.